morning and welcome to Bozeman, Montana, and a freeware airport as the sun is shining and it looks like it's going to be kind of a nice day, but snow is coming for the U.S. holiday and the busiest travel season. Well, every season's a busy travel season, right? We've got an E-Jet there. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Dave. Welcome if you're new. I hope you're having a great weekend so far, or a week. It's YouTube. It could be any day of the week, right? I do the spy flights over on Twitch every now and then. I come on over here to YouTube and do what I call a complete cold and dark flight. And we're focusing today on the Flight Sim Studios E-Jet, the E-175. And the airplane has all sorts of history behind it, but you know, the airplane just keeps getting better and better. And I've really been enjoying this airplane, partially because this airplane is one that's in use today. And if you are young and thinking about a career in aviation, this might be one of the airplanes that could be one of your first jobs. So anyway, I really think that this is an exciting airplane and it keeps getting better and better. And guess what? You can fly this thing on VATSIM. You just got to stay a little bit ahead of the airplane. So what are we going to be doing today? This is the Flight Sim Studios E-175, keeping better and better, flyable on VATSIM. This is going to be a full cold and dark flight, including flight planning. Somebody was telling me, hey, would you please come on in and do some of your flight planning too. So this is going to be also on the flight planning, and I'll show you how all that works. I am using Navigraph and SimBrief. I have a payware. I also have a freeware airport that I just found. So Denver's a payware. There's a freeware at flightsim.to that you can get for Bozeman. And I'm also using GSX as a really nice pushback engine. For today, we're in real weather and real time, which means if you're going to fly along with me, your real weather and time will be different, and your runways may be different too. I'll show you how it is that I work around the bugs with this airplane. Even with no VNAV, you can actually make this thing work, but like I said, you have to stay really ahead of the airplane. So best part about YouTube, you can pause the video, you can rewind the video, look it over again. So pause the video if you want right now, start up your flight simulator and fly along with me. And then I also like to suggest, after doing a flight like this, no matter who you're learning from here on YouTube, a couple days from now, try and do one of your flight on your own out of your hometown airport, just to kind of help you remember all the things that are going on. I always do like to say about the videos, I do have a private pilot's license. I am not an airline pilot, but I have been flight simming for a lot longer than I'm going to admit. And what this is all about is not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is what works for me in a simulated situation. Obviously, our simulators are not perfect, so this is how it is that you can make this airplane. I'm still new on YouTube. I read all the questions in the comments and can't wait to hear what you have to say. But enough of the yapping. Let's head on out to the airport and get ready to do the cold and dark flight. So there it is. Sunrise is coming up. One of the things that I'll do is, question is, how do you know where to fly? And one of the best ways to kind of figure that out is go to something like FlightAware or Flight Radar 24, and you can go and find a flight. Here is an E-170 flight that's going to be taking off in 8 hours from Bozeman to Denver. And so this is a great way to go and try and figure out a flight that you might want to take. So that's how it is that I go and try and find a real world flight. Next thing that we're going to do is the actual flight planning for today. And our flight planning for today starts with beautiful SimBrief here. That was the last flight I did. So when you get into SimBrief, you need to create a new flight plan. And here is our new flight plan. So let's go ahead and choose our airline. This is going to be United. SkyWest looks like United. We'll give ourselves a number. We are at KBZN, Bozeman, and then we're going to KDEN, Denver International Airport. I will usually, for the time of departure, I might add, especially if it's going to be a VATSIM event, maybe an extra 10 minutes, especially one of those VATSIM events where you got a departure time, like fly and see Santa or cross the pond. So I'm adding a little bit more time to that. Next, we'll choose the airframe, and I've got tons of airplanes in here. You collect a lot of simulated airplanes, but we're looking for the Embraer, and we're going to be a United Express flight. At which point, there is our route for today. If you don't like that route, you've got several that you could choose from. You could also come over here and add a few more waypoints. Probably this is going to be good. Maybe we'll go over, well, let's just use the top one. It's a good one. We're going to get a SID, a star, and we got one checkpoint in the middle. So there we go. Everything else, the next thing you might want to do is check out the departure and arrival runways. There are several ways to do this. You can go and take a look at the little, just hover over the departure runway, and it'll give you the METAR. Winds right now in Bozeman are nothing at nothing, so runway 12 is probably going to be good. But how do you really know about that? How do we know what the runways are? I can't remember every runway in the world. So the next best thing to do is come on over here to Navigraph, and before you start stacking up your charts, just look at the airport, KBZN, Bozeman. So click on it, grab the charts, and just have a look at the ground chart here. So it says runway 12 for departure. So, okay, we're over here in the terminal. That's probably just fine there. What do we have for Denver? Let's see what's going on in Denver. Again, hover over arrival runway. It'll give you the METAR. Winds right now are variable at 3 knots. 10 miles visibility, looking pretty good. It says 16 right. Let's go and have a look and see what's going on here. So we'll do another search, KDEN, look at Denver real fast, and then I'll clear the search, open the charts, go to the taxi chart, and look at the ground. So they're talking about 16 right, and that's pretty normal. This is normal traffic flow for Denver coming in on the 16s. So I think 16 right is just fine. So this is a really great way to just take an extra minute or two. Another thing you could do is go back to something like Flight Radar 24 and go and just actually hit Denver Airport or FlightAware. Look at the airport and see what the traffic flow is like in the real world. And yeah, it sure looks like they're landing on the 16s. So, okay, that's another great way to figure out what should I be doing here. So really, at this point in time, our flight plan looks great. If it's a big VATSIM event, I might add a little bit of taxi out time, just because that's going to be a thing. You will be waiting a little bit. So I say we got a great flight. Let's go ahead and generate the flight plan. And it's going to build up the maps, and everything's going to work out pretty good. And it's going to load. Okay, so we've got a flight plan. The next thing I do is I hit view the PDF. And there is our PDF copy of the flight plan. This is the default version. It's the Lido style of charts. I think this is the one that most airlines use in the real world. And I'm going to hit the disk sign, and I'm going to save it over to the desktop. And there it is on the desktop, and I'm going to save it over another PDF that I have on my desktop. Say that 3 times fast. I'm going to go ahead and hit Active Plan and save it on top of that. That way I don't have 200 flight plans on my desktop. The current flight that I'm flying is always available, and that's how it is that I go and do that. The next thing that we would do is, if we're going to fly this thing on VATSIM, we would pre-file on a network. I'm not going to file on VATSIM right now, so I can concentrate on the buttons that I'm pushing and everything else. Next thing to do is go over to my desktop, and I'm going to double click on Active Plan. And there it is. Here is our flight plan, everything that we need to know about this. So the next thing that I'll do is start going and looking at little bits and pieces of data. And you probably noticed that there's a little thing in the description that looks like this. It looks a little bit like this. I haven't gone and updated it yet for the description because I have to write that after I record the video. So we got a little bit of a time warp going on here. But this is where I'll go and put our cruise altitude. So we're going to go and be cruising at flight level 370 today. And this is just a little notepad that I keep on my desktop so that I know, so that I can take notes, not kill a forest of trees. And I'll just go ahead and plug the flight plan in there. And you can also see that we're going to have 43 passengers. It's about an hour and 45 minutes gate to gate. And all of that looks good. So we just got a little bit of information. Now let's go back over to Navigraph real fast and download the flight plan into Navigraph. So flights, import flight from SimBrief, and download. Bozeman to Denver. Now, there is a cute little function that you can get here in Navigraph when you go to airports. It says sync with flight. And what this will do is automatically stack up all of your flights, all of your charts. I don't like to do that for the simple reason that I like to look at the charts as I'm stacking it up. It's how I kind of brief myself on what we're going to do. So I'm going to go to charts here. We're going to go to taxi. The first thing we're going to do is we'll go ahead and get the airport chart, and I'm going to hit the thumbtack and put it down here. And we're down here at the gate, runway 12, looks pretty good. Next is the SID going out. We are doing the Bobcat 4 departure. So Bobcat 4 departure, named after the Montana State University Bobcats. That's a big deal in the state of Montana. And this you can kind of see what we're going to be doing. So after takeoff, we're going to go to Jasper and then Bobcat, 8,000 feet at Jasper. This is basically at or above. And you do want to be at or above in Montana because there's this mountain thing going on here. And after this is going to take us from Bobcat, I believe, to Zorky and then the Bozeman Reservoir VOR. So then we're going to go to Bozeman, and that's how we exit the SID. Okay, we're all briefed on that one. Coming on into Denver. Let's see. Wait a minute. Don't tell me it's going to be the Flatiron 3 arrival, right? It's always the Flatiron 3 arrival going into Denver, especially if you're coming in from the north. Here we are coming in. We'll be at TOFUU, Granola, Hippie. Love some of the names coming into Denver. We do have some altitudes we got to be. Excuse me. Sorry, apologies. I'm still battling a voice cold right now. So at Hippie, above flight level 270, here's some more that we're really going to have to worry with here. And we're going to come out at Tichenor and 13. So as we're coming in, I'm going to have this one over on my other monitor to make sure that I'm within all of these constraints because the airplane is not going to do it. No VNAV, okay? So let's go ahead. Did we get Tichenor, Flatiron? We did. Approaches. We are expecting 16 right. If we were on VATSIM, I also know they're going to be landing on 16 left and 17 right. That's just the way they do it in Denver. And I might go and grab those charts down and tack those down here too, because those VATSIM controllers are tricky and they might move you over to another runway. So if you've already got the runways that they're using tacked up down there, it just makes your workload a lot easier. We'll get the Denver chart, United Parks at the Bravo Concourse, and all of that's good to go. Then the last thing I'll do is hit the little diamond here, the little pink triangle, and zoom this all the way in. And this is a really great gate, really great runway map. It also gives you gate numbers. We are at Alpha 3. So if we're on VATSIM, I'm going to mark down Alpha 3 because their controllers, ground controllers, want to know where you are at the airport. And that just helps out. Okay, so we got our charts, we got our flight plan. That's it for the flight plan. It's time to go and do airplane things. So really for the E-Jet, the first thing that I'm going to go and do is I'm going to go and crawl into the cockpit and go to the EFB. I'm going to ask for a ground power unit. I'm going to get the jetway out to the airplane. I'm going to remove the safety pins, those are the gear pins, and I'm going to remove the engine covers on this airplane. And then you can see as we come on out here, we've got the jetway is coming out to the airplane. You can also see we've got our ground power unit is now plugged in too. And that looks pretty good. Come on back here. You could open up that 1L door. You could also open up your cargo doors too. And there's some cargo. I have not used GSX to actually load the airplane and do passengers yet, so I'm not 100% sure how it is that works. So this is usually the stop that I will make as far as setting up the airplane at this point. Next thing I'm going to do is go to flight details on the EFB. I'm going to add a flight. I'm going to import my SimBrief flight plan. It's going to sit there, and then we're going to get a orange check, and I'm going to click that check and click it again. And that makes this my active flight plan for today's flight. And there's the departure and the arrival time. So everything's looking good. And that's the EFB and the initial setup there. The next thing that we would do is we would go and power on the airplane. So up here, we've got two batteries. There's battery 1 and battery 2. Battery 1 goes to on. And I think you're supposed to actually wait just a little bit on battery 1. And then after that, you can, if everything's good and fine, you can turn battery 2 to auto. This airplane automatically has the nav lights and the logo lights turned on for you. So that those switches are already thrown for you in this airplane. Right now, I have a feeling they're going to turn that off. Also, the dome lights are on right now. I don't think we need those. And then we do have a ground power unit. It says it's available. I'm going to click it, but nothing happens. It did go in, but I think it checks voltages and everything before it actually plugs itself into the airplane to make sure that you're not putting the bad voltage in. I think that's probably the way they do that in the real airplane. And everything is coming together just fine. Let's see. I'm also going to probably increase the levels on the LCDs here. Just boost these up a little bit so I can read them better. And all of that looks good. If you look down here, you can see all of our doors are open, that we've opened, and the airplane's slowly coming to life here. It says the emergency lights are not armed. I forgot to do that. You do the emergency lights almost immediately. So emergency lights are now on. We're in the U.S. The U.S. does tend to run the APU a little bit more than they do in Europe, so we can go ahead and kick the APU on. The mornings are getting chilly in old Bozeman, so let's go ahead and pop that on. You usually flick it to on, wait a few seconds, and then you can kick it over to start, and then your APU is going to get started too. And then it's time to come on down and start doing the flight management computer. So both of them are currently set to radio. They're independent, which is really nice to have two of them like this. And the first thing you do on this airplane is hit the nav button. And after nav button, you actually backtrack. Most of the time you move forward using this right button over here, but this time you backtrack to maintenance and select the selected FMS and active mode. Both of those need to be set at dual. They will be in the real airplane. If they weren't, you actually turn the airplane off and turn it back on again. So you got to reboot the airplane. I always thought that that was pretty entertaining. Now we can go back to the nav ident page, check your nav data. It is current, and now we're going to go to route. It's already got the airport. It's figured out that we're at Bozeman. We are going to Denver. So KDEN. So put in Denver there, and that goes up there. It's going to think, and then you see where it says flight ID, it says 175. This is actually where you put your flight number in. And as you remember, when we did the flight plan on SimBrief, we are United Airlines, Flight 441, pop that in the flight ID. You need to have your correct flight number, because then you can go hit the send button. Flight plan request, we're sending it, there it is. And the flight plan has been received. Let's clear that. And go to DLK flight plan. So data link flight plan, Bozeman to Denver, and apply active. And it's going to think about it again. And now all of a sudden it's done. And Bozeman to Denver, next page. And the Boy VOR, TOFUU, and Denver. That's our flight plan. It's that simple. Really pretty cool. Next thing we'll do is we could do our performance initialization. Now, this is where I think I'm about ready to make my first mistake. I've looked around to try and find out what you do for takeoff and landing fuel. Now, I originally thought that your takeoff fuel needed to be, because the airplane knows how much gas you've already put in the airplane, right? The airplane already knows that you know, you've put in a block fuel of 3,624. I'm doing this in kilos. So it already knows the block fuel, but I originally thought you needed to put your takeoff fuel in there, which is block fuel minus taxi fuel. But I saw a video that said, no, you put your taxi fuel number in, 286. So I still don't know if I'm doing this right. I thought it would be takeoff, so it says TO and landing fuel. I'm going to go back and do it the way I used to. So takeoff fuel, and that, I believe, is the minimum takeoff fuel. That's this right here. Again, this might be wrong, but that's going to be 3,338. That's our takeoff fuel. 3,338. Okay, and then do the slash, and then the landing fuel, this is the fuel which is your final reserve and alternate. So when we land, unless we have to divert, hold, or, dodge a flying saucer, this is what we should have in the tanks. That's how much we could, that's 30 minutes of flying, plus enough flying to get to our alternate, which is Colorado Springs, plus an additional 15 minutes of, oh my God, fuel. So that's going to be 1,086. This is the way that I thought you did this, and so I've been going back and forth and watching my fuel numbers to see if it changes, and I haven't noticed anything. So that's the way I've been doing that. Again, I don't know if it's right. I'm still researching that out. Next page, our altitude for today is flight level 370. Our cruise winds on your flight plan, you're going to find cruise winds over here if you're using the Lido style, also known as average winds. And our average wind for the flight is going to be 264 at 21 knots. So it's going to be 264 degrees at 21 knots. And that's usually where I will stop at this point in time. The APU is up and running, and everything is looking good. The airplane, we've got pneumatics blowing through, so the air conditioning or the heat is on. Now we can come down here and go to the departure page. And the first thing I'm going to do is go down to the bottom here, and I'm going to go to real-time loading. And in 6 minutes, the fuel and the passengers and the bags will have loaded. So now we'll come up here, and we're going to choose our runway for departure. We know it's runway 12. The condition, well, just looking outside the airport, we know that it's dry. So we're going to go that, and now we come over here, and it says environment. Wind direction, speed, temperature, and altimeter setting. Now, you can hit this little button, and sometimes it's fairly close, but it's not right on. And one thing you can do is you can use something like Navigraph to come on in here, go to Bozeman Airport, go to weather, and there's your METAR. So the METAR here in Bozeman, and then one of the things I'll do is I'll actually take that and grab a little bit of that and then go ahead and put this over in my flight notes. And I've already looked and seen that winds are nothing at nothing, 10 miles visibility, it's -3 with the altimeter 2981. So we got all those. I'm going to move that out of the way. Now let's just slide this out of the way and check. So right now this says winds are 041 at 0. So I think it just is putting a number in. Did it get the -3 right? It did. Did it get the altimeter right? 1009. Does that translate over to 2981? 1009. So let's come on in and put let's put in the altimeter. 2981. Let's see. So 2981 on the altimeter. 2981. Let's hit the HPA, and it says 1010, not 1009. So it's close. I'm going to say that that's right, but I'm going to come in and just change it to 2981. So I think that there was a time that this number, that this was not getting the right data, but it is now. And now with all this filled in, we can hit calculate. 4 minutes of passenger loading. We're going to be out of here so fast. Now we can hit the manifest page. They've added a new button that sends this data to the McDo. I've hit it once and it totally flummoxed the McDo, so I'm not going to do that. But it does give us our zero fuel weight as 27326. So 2727326, and that goes right in there. Okay? Page 3. This is where you could change your climb speed, cruise speed, and descent speed, and cost index. This does not work. You can't do anything with that, so we're done with that. So we're done with this part of the flight plan. We can go back and hit the departure now, and here's where we can put in our runway. So runway is going to be 12. We're doing the Bobcat 4 departure and the buoy transition, and we can apply that. Next, we could do our arrival and what we're expecting. We are expecting runway 16 right. It's going to be the ILS. We are going to go via Tishner is going to be our transition, out of the Flatiron 3, and that's going to be TOFUU. That's one of the reasons why it is that I do like to stack up my own charts and stuff here, because I look for those sorts of things. This is what the airplane's going to be expecting, and it goes and it puts your arrival in there. And so all of that is good. Performance initialization, we've already got a little bit of that done already. So that's looking pretty good. The next thing that we've got to do is takeoff and landing. To get there, the only place that I've been able to do that is go to performance and hit the takeoff page. And here it's already got our runway heading. We know that it's a dry runway. Runway slope, you could, this is where we'll put that in. It's not working quite yet, but we do know that the wind here is nothing at nothing. So I'm going to go 0 at 0, and I think it just leaves this thing blank. So then we go to page 2. We're going to go flaps 2. You could also, I don't think that we can change the flex temperatures or anything yet. So go to the takeoff page and it does some calculations. 119, 125, and 130. Looking over here, these speeds are different. I'm not sure what to choose right now. I'm usually choosing whichever is a little bit faster. So really, we're going to go 123, 128, 143. 123, 128, 143. 123, 128, and 143. It's also giving us a new flaps retract speed of 183. 183. And now I'm going to take that 183 and I'm going to put it here in the speed. So we're going to put 183 there. This airplane, when you're transitioning, rolling up your flaps and speeding up, it tends to do this porpoisey thing. But if you put the flaps retract speed in there, get your flaps up, then speed up, it's just a lot more smooth right now. So that's one of the things that I do, and it makes it a happier airplane. Okay, that's pretty good. How are the passengers doing? We got 30 seconds of passengers to be loaded, so let's go ahead and do the last few things up here. Let's get our runway heading, and I get my runway heading right over here. And on the chart, our runway heading for runway 12 is 123, 123 degrees. So heading goes in there, 123. And you just kind of have to crank it around. 1, 2, 3. There's 70. I will tell you that the dials here are a little hard to turn sometimes, so that can be a little bit hard. Let's see, do we have a cleared altitude on this departure? Yes, our top altitude is cleared at 16,000. If you're new to VATSIM and you're getting a clearance and all they tell you is climb via the SID and they do not give you an initial altitude to climb to, that basically says that on the SID that you're doing, there is a top altitude, and ATC expects you to look at your chart and see that. So we are cleared up to 16,000 feet. There we go, and we'll put that. So there's our heading. There's 16,000 feet. And guess what? Our passengers are aboard. Loading is finished. So we can go over here to ground. I'm going to go ahead and close up my doors. I'm going to retract the jetway now. Let's look up here. Make sure that the GPU says available and not in use before you disconnect your ground power unit. Let's look down here. Do we have parking brakes on? We do. I'm going to go ahead and pull the chocks. I'm going to pull the cones. And let's go up to GSX and see if GSX will push us back. And prepare for pushback and departure. And let's see, we can do United Airlines. Let's not bother with icing today.
Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push is completed and brakes are set.
We've got the cranky pushback crew chief today. So they most of the crew chiefs in GSX, they're nice, they're happy.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
This one is I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. My coffee doesn't taste good. You can clearly tell that this one is not a happy camper. So there goes our crew chief, and here comes the airplane. We're almost ready. Well, we're ready to get out of here. So doors are closed. Seatbelts are going to go on. Seatbelts, sterile, no smoking is actually in this airplane. It's labeled no smoking.
Checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
But the no smoking is no devices. Turn off your electronic devices and stuff. And we're also going to turn on the electric hydraulic pump A. And we'll also turn on our red beacon. And here comes the tug. And everything's looking pretty good. We're going to push nose right, tail left on this one. So everything's coming up. Now, my GSX profile for the airplane, sometimes the crew chief goes right up and stands in front of your engine when it's going. Just there you go. And I think we're almost ready to go. Lights are all on. I think we're going to go and pull parking brakes in a second. Nose right, tail left.
Release parking brakes, please.
Oh, wow. Said please this time. There you go.
Commencing push.
Parking brakes are off.
Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push is completed and brakes are set.
Okay, so there we go. A nice push back there. Nice push back there. The cabin itself is actually really nicely modeled. And out we go to enjoy that. Time for a sip of coffee. When you have voice problems, boy, having something nice and warm in the cockpit is so pleasant. So as you can see, you really can take this airplane and have it do a really good job on, it really will work well for you. Let's see, we should have come over here and given ourselves a squawk code. Let's just call it 2000 and put it in the transponder, and let's squawk mode Charlie. I do that even if I'm not on VATSIM, so I never forget when I'm on VATSIM, which is a good thing to do. And the rest of this is pretty much all set and ready to go. The only other thing that we're going to need here is over on the manifest page, we're going to need the trim. TRM is 4.2. We could actually set that right now. Trim is over here, and there's pitch. We're going to pitch up just a little bit, and that trim setting seems to be really spot on. So that's your trim setting. Sometimes grabbing the trim setting is good.
Please set parking brake.
Parking brakes are set.
We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
Okay, so even though it said engine start, we haven't started engines. And so they're going to go disconnect the tug, but the brakes are on so we can start our engines. So uncover the two starters, and let's start engine number 1. The engine start sounds on this airplane are pretty good.
Unlocking gear.
And then now the GSX profile is going to go out, and our crew chief is going to stand right in front of the engine. So we need to get an updated.
Bypass pin removed.
And we're getting a good start on engine number 1.
Right is clear.
Engines, airplane's clear, so we're clear for taxi. There she goes. And good start on engine number 1. I'm going to put the plastic cap up. Let's start engine number 2. Here comes engine 2. Now we're going to get what United calls a salute and release from guidance. So we're going to hold up the gear pin and say, see, I removed your gear pin. You can steer your airplane. And then we're going to get a wave. That is also a big part of saying, I've examined the underside of your airplane. There are no tools, no carts, no people, no bunny rabbits or kittens, and it is safe for you to taxi the airplane. It's what United calls salute and release from guidance. And the airlines get pretty serious. Don't move an airplane until you get that, and GSX won't let you roll anyway. And as you can see, we had a couple of flashes here as we were starting the engine about hydraulic. I'm not worrying about that. Just it's popping up right now. The airplane still flies, so we've got both engines going. I'm going to do APU off. We're going to go and cap plastic cap over engine number 2. Let's go ahead and do flaps 2 for departure. Let's also come up here and do auto brakes to RTO. Auto brakes are set. We're going to go ahead and turn on the nose light for taxi. I'm going to ring the cabin call button. Let the cabin know that we're serious about rolling the airplane about. Down here, parking brake is off. And toe brakes are on. We'll release the toe brakes now. You might need a little bit of power to get the airplane rolling. But after that, once you start rolling, at that point in time, this thing does a great little thrust idle taxi. And out you go. About 5 to 10 knots here in the gate area. And we're going to go turn to the right, turn to the left, get on the Alpha Taxiway, head on out to runway number 12. Jet sound that you just heard was the APU shutting down. No snow on the ground in Bozeman. There will be some snow developing probably. I'm recording this video just before on the Sunday before the U.S. Holiday Thanksgiving. So we are actually expecting some snow in Montana for Thanksgiving. So the really big mountains over there are going to probably get some good snow. They've already got snow on them. And I boosted up our taxi speed just a little bit so that we can get down there. But basically, ground speed says we're at 22 knots and holding the 22 knots. So we're actually doing pretty good. Coming on in here, let's go to the map page. I'm also going to turn off a couple things. So nav aids and airports are going to be off for departure. TCAS is going to go on. Go to the systems page and we'll do flight controls. Look up here. Hey, we're still in the center of the taxi line. Isn't that nice? And we'll go ahead and do elevators, ailerons. My rudder is attached to my nose wheel, so we're not going to do the rudder page. That looks good. Back to the map. And we're still going at about 24 knots, so we may need to do a little braking. Should have done a brake check before we got going too fast, though. It really is, the airplane right now for me is getting to the point that I need to go online and download a checklist for this thing. I think that some of the little micro hesitations or lags that you're seeing are due to the airplane itself. This is a pretty simple freeware scenery, so I don't think it's scenery related. So I'm sure that the developers are also working on optimization for the airplane to get rid of those. Coming on up here, tower says we're already cleared to line up and wait. Strobe's going on. We know the passengers in the cabin are secure, so we'll just go ahead and go on out to the runway. Always nice to check the paint on the ground too, and make sure that you're all set with the right runway. Okay, we need to go, and our first altitude is going to be above 8,000 feet. And then above 11,000 feet, and then above 15,000 feet. Those numbers are not going to show up in your map, and they don't show up in the McDo. So if I'm on VATSIM right now, like I'm not, but if I'm on VATSIM, one of the things that I'm doing is I am keeping my chart open. Now you might also notice there's an alignment problem. There's the airport and there's my airplane. So you'll get that with some freeware airports. They're not aligned correctly. So we're not synced with the map right now. You can look and see there's Japper. I think it's Japper, probably Jasper, Bobcat, and Zorky. So above Jasper here, we want to be above 8,000 feet. We're at 4,000 feet, and then Bobcat is 11,000, so that should be good. Tower called, we're clear for takeoff. Let's go ahead and do those landing lights. All of that looks pretty good. Release the brakes. I'm going to go ahead and push my throttles about halfway up. And look at the engines and say they're stable. I'm going to push them up a little more, and I'm going to engage the auto throttle. Takeoff is showing up pretty good.
Auto brake.
Okay, I think it's when I did the auto brakes, checked. I set the auto brakes, but I think when you use the toe brakes, that disengages them.
E1, erotic.
Positive rate of climb, gear going up. Don't think I hit my flight director button. There's flight directors. I'm gonna hit the nav button too. And all that looks good. So we're passing 5,000, almost 6,000 feet. We have to be above 8,000 feet at this first waypoint. Climbing a little bit too steeply here. It wants me to climb a little bit less. We're really pretty good. Let's go ahead and hit the AP. Don't be afraid to use the AP with this airplane. Passing 7,000 feet. Remember, at this first waypoint, it's 8,000. And you can see the engines are spooling down now. So this is flaps retract speed. So I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning up the flaps, while at the same time increasing my speed now to 210. And flaps are going up. We don't have any speed restrictions on this except for the 250 knots below 10,000 feet. So I'm going to go up to 250 on my speed. We are passing 7,000 feet. We've got 4 miles to go to Jasper. I think we're going to be fine. We'll make that 8,000 just fine. Let's see if it does a better job. It's not climbing as well. Do we have flight level change in? Usually flight level change works really good for you on a departure. I use variable speed for our arrivals. Okay, so we were really close. We were about 200 feet too low. Coming out to Bobcat, we got to be above 11,000 feet. That's easy. Zorky, 15,000 feet, that's easy. ATC called, said climb and maintain, flight level 270. And all of that looks good. Cleaned up everything, flaps are up, speed brakes are down. Auto brakes, again, we did arm the auto brakes going out, but I think when I tapped the brakes, that disabled them. So you may need to do your auto brakes to RTO. There was also, I forgot to do this, there's a takeoff config button that you can press right on top of the throttles before you go. That's also helpful too. And coming up on Bobcat, 10,000 feet, landing lights can go off, nose light can go off, 10,000 foot cabin call, and we'll increase the speed now, and I'm going to climb at about 270 right now. We have mountains, so I don't want to speed up. I want to keep my climb rate good. Another important safety tip with this airplane, always just hit the center button on your heading select. Always keep this straight up like this. This airplane has a nasty tendency to go and do whatever it wants every now and then, particularly on approach. It just something, no, I want to go this way. Well, the flight plan says, no, we're going to go this way. It's going to go and do something else. So I don't know why. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the flight plan. It just does that. So one of the things that I suggest with this airplane right now is after you make a turn, reset your heading bug. We made that 11,000 feet at Bobcat easy. It's going to be 15,000 at Zorky. ATC has called and told us to climb to our cruising altitude, which today is flight level 370. And there is 370. By the way, this airplane does not have top of descent. I'll show you how it is when we do top of descent stuff. Coming out at Zorky. Okay, we're kind of done with the turn, and still trying to turn here. I'm going to hit the heading select button anyway, just cause. There's Zorky. We can make the map a little bit bigger now. There's 25 miles. There's Tools. Looks like we're stable on our trek out to Zorky, so heading select. Passing 15,000 feet. And you can see we're really kind of off to the side here on this departure. But we've hit all of our constraints, so we're done with that. And then I'll usually zoom this out a little bit, give us an idea of where we are. So as the airplane climbs, one of the things that I do is, if you're flying along with me, I kind of hit pause in the middle of the flight, you know, after we get to cruising altitude or getting close to, so you don't have to sit here and listen to me tell some of the worst jokes in the world. Problem is, we don't have top of descent. So, how do we figure this out? Well, the first thing to do is the airplane's climbing pretty good. There is 18,000 feet. Hit the Barrow select button, standard altimeter. We're all set with that. I'm also going to go ahead and turn off the no smoking, which is electronic devices. Sterile cockpit is another good way to let the flight attendants know that they can get up and start with the cabin service stuff. You can also see a little bit of snow on the mountains to the south of Bozeman right now. Actually, I think there's a little bit more on them than we have. So what do we do? How are we going to handle this top of descent stuff? Well, come on down here. I'm going to put this thing over on progress. We are 425 miles out of Denver right now. The estimated fuel on board when we get there, you notice that the number is ridiculously low. Don't worry, once you get to cruising altitude, it's going to stabilize and you'll have more fuel than you need if you plan for it. To come on in here, what we've got is, we're not going back to Bozeman, so I'm going to go ahead and clean up my stack of charts here and get rid of the Bozeman charts. For Denver, on the Flatiron 3 arrival, our first constraint is at or above flight level 270 at Hippie. Okay, so there is a little bit of math that you can do. We're going to go and we're cruising at flight level 370. We want to be at flight level 270 at Hippie. Math was never my strong suit, so we're going to be at 37,000 feet. Our target altitude is 27,000 feet. You take that number, multiply it times 3, divide it by 1,000, and it gives you 30 miles. Understand that this method of doing it does not take into account your airspeed. It doesn't take into account the wind. It doesn't take into account the rotation of the Earth or anything else. In other words, this is a very, very, what I call squishy number, 30. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a look at the arrival, and between Granola and Hippie, love the names here, between Granola and Hippie on the arrival after TOFUU, it's 52 miles. It says we need 30 miles to do this descent. So in My little plan here, I'm going to wait and I'm going to add 10 miles to it. If it's a bigger descent, I'll add more, like 25 miles and stuff. But I'm going to add 10 miles, so we're going to call it 40 miles from Hippie. We'll start our descent. So there's 52. Right after Granola, we start our descent to Hippie. And that's how it is we're going to figure our descent here. What am I going to do between now and then? I'm going to monitor the weather. I'm going to constantly hit my altitude select button and keep it straight up in case the airplane gets crazy. Aha, 25,000 feet. This is usually when I do seatbelts unless there's turbulence. And in this airplane, I increase my speed to 280. So my speed's going to increase to 280 as we continue the climb. The airplane at between 28 and 29,000 feet, it's going to switch you over to Mach automatically, and I'm going to start goosing my speed up there a little bit till I get to Mach 0.80, or if we were on VATSIM, to whatever Mach they would be telling us to do. There's another problem that you run into with this airplane on VATSIM, because usually on VATSIM, the controllers, and in the real world too, the controllers are going to sometimes want to move you a little bit ahead. And they may tell you that before you even get to TOFUU, go direct to Flatiron. So in other words, direct twos, you could get a direct to Folsom or Bobco, or, direct to Tishner. And in some cases, if it's really light, they may even tell you over on the ILS to go direct to Shred. The thing is right now in this airplane, doing a direct to, you can do directs right now. So if we go to flight plan, we could go direct to buoy. We could bypass tools. You just click buoy and put it at the top. Really easy. The problem with this airplane right now is if you are in a star and ATC says go direct to Tishner, it is going to say you can't do that direct to in this. So I am sure that there is a way that you do that. I don't know if it's a bug or there's another way you do a direct within a star. Right now, the only thing you can do is go to heading hold and fly it manually. Or as a famous, or whatever commentator said, we'll do it live. That's about the only way that I've been able to make this work. So as we continue our climb, there is tools. We are now off to buoy. Another thing you might spend a little bit of time doing is, okay, so here we are at Folsom. Let's see, let's hit flight plan, go to the top. So that's page 2. Here's page 1. So buoy, TOFUU, Granola, Hippie. You might also notice that we don't have speeds and altitudes here now. There's Folsom, Bobco, Flatiron, Eldo, Be Safe, Be Done, and then out to Tishner. There are no altitudes in here, so that's why you have to manage them yourself. That's why I suggest keeping your charts in front of you. And there you go. That's kind of how we do this at the moment. As you do this flight, especially the mountains in the wintertime, have a cabin view. This is the part in the live stream where you can go and sit back, enjoy your coffee, and the satellite photography scenery. If we were on this flight for real right now, I think that's pretty much what it would look like. Absolutely amazing. Really nice scenery. The best part, having a window seat on the flight, right? So let's go ahead and we're going to continue the climb. I'm going to increase my speed to Mach 0.80. I'm going to keep my heading bug aligned, and I'm going to check the weather once. And when we get to Hippie, that's when I'm going to stop my video now. You stop your video, and when we get to Hippie, that's when you go ahead and start your video, okay? In the meantime, enjoy the view. And there is a turn from TOFUU to Granola to Hippie. Remember, at Hippie, we want to be at flight level 270. The map's on a 100-mile view. I'm going to come on out here and reset that heading bug straight on up. And welcome back. Thank you for coming on back, although it's been just a few seconds since, but it's been about a half an hour flight here. Excuse me, I actually had time to finish up the breakfast dishes and stuff. Oh yes, that's multitasking. Everything else in the airplane is still the same. The only thing that I was doing was I did hit the heading select button, put it straight up, and I also increased my speed to Mach 0.80. So I've kicked up the speed a little bit, and that's about it. I did go and get the latest weather information, and for our flight today, Denver, winds now are 220 at 7, 10 miles visibility. Few clouds here and there, and it's 8 degrees. The altimeter is 2981. So pretty much everything else is pretty much set for the arrival here. We're all good to go. One of the things that I'll do is once I'm pretty sure about the ILS we're going to get, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to get the ILS frequency for the runway we're expecting. And we're expecting runway 16 right. So the ILS is going to be 111.9. So I'm going to come over here, and it doesn't say that now, but I'm going to put that frequency in, 111.9. And I'm going to put that in as my standby frequency on nav1. Looks like GSX is still active too. Let's go ahead and turn that off so we don't get those crazy little double arrows. What this does is this basically goes ahead, and if the auto frequency changer doesn't frequency change, all I have to do is hit one button, and that's it. The next thing to do is come on over here, and we're going to do minimums. And minimums over here are going to be, for this runway, 5,526 feet. Okay. So I've switched from radar altimeter to baro, and we just got to sit here and crank and crank and crank. Now you can, if you want, you can kind of move your pointer over and just hold the button down, and it'll crank it up there. So there's 1,000. That's the trouble with these high altitude airports. Sometimes plugging the number in is just crank and crank and crank it. So we'll continue on that. There's let's see, that's 19,000 there. Oh, okay, 9. Okay, am I not doing this right? Hang on. There's 2,400. Yeah, not 19,000. Okay, we're coming up on 3,000. So I must have moved the mouse or something a little bit. So we're going to 5526 for our baro setting for our landing. There's 4,000. Can you imagine? Let's see, Telluride's what, 7,000, I think. There are some airports in Bolivia where it's like, what, 13 and 14,000 feet for minimums. Okay, there's 5,000 feet. 5520. So there's 5570. It's 5526. We're going to have to round it. So it's going to be 5530 and the baro. And if you didn't see, it's this little baby number right here. So that's the number that we were sitting there turning, and we're all set and ready to go. Hey, look at this. We're on our way to Hippie, and we are 51 miles out. I said 40 miles. We got to get ready. So coming over here, the best way to manage this airplane is get your chart, and our first altitude is flight level 270. So I'm going to look on the descent at what are the altitudes going down I can't go below. So in this case, it's going to be flight level 270. We're going to dial that in now. 270. We're coming up on 47 miles. So we're getting close to when I thought I was going to descend. So I'm going to reduce from Mach 0.80 to Mach 0.77. And our speed's slowly going down. And there's 46 miles. Now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to hit vertical speed. And we're going to go down 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And vertical speed's right there. There's 700 feet per minute. I'm going to increase that slowly. You could also use flight level change. I found that that's a little bit on the abrupt side for a descent. Whereas vertical speed, it's a nice gradual drop the nose and down you go. And there we go. There is 1,800 feet per minute. We are 41 miles from Hippie. It won't go lower unless something's very wrong. It won't go below flight level 270. And so the next altitude I'll set is Flatiron at flight level 190. And that's how it is that I work my way down. So how many miles do we need to get to Flatiron? Well, let's do the math again. We're going to be at flight level 270. So here we go, 27,000 feet. The lowest altitude that we can go at Flatiron is 19,000 feet. Times 3 divided by 1,000 is 24 miles. So we need 24 miles to do that. Well, what do we got here? We've got to Flatiron, there's 13, there is 11, so there's 23, there's 17. So between Hippie and Folsom, we'll start our next descent at flight level 190. And then as we get closer and closer to the airport, we're just going to be managing our descent. Chances are we'll be between those two constraints and we'll be just fine. So now we're descending at Mach 0.77. There's Hippie coming on up there. Let's go ahead and make the map a little different. So 25 miles now. And it doesn't matter if we're going to hit Hippie a little bit too soon. If we're going to hit flight level 270 before we get to Hippie, because it's not going to go below that, so we don't bust that altitude constraint. So that's how you manage one of these descents. No RNAV, but you can do it. The trick is, especially in a VATSIM event, if you're going to try it with this airplane, you got to stay a mile ahead of the airplane. You know, what are we doing? I mean, we've already figured out what we're going to do to get down to Flatiron. And then after that, descending down to Tichenor is just going to be follow a gradual descent going on in. We've already got our weather. We've already set up the ILS that we think we're going to get. If all of a sudden ATC decides, no, you can't land on 16 right, we want you to land on 16 left, we know that the weather's not so bad, so we can easily do a sidestep over to the other runway. And if we actually have time, we could even set up the new ILS. So we can do that too. Problem that you're going to run into is over in the flight plan, we are now in the star. So if all of a sudden, for some reason, ATC says direct to Flatiron, it's going to say, no, you can't do that in this airplane. So again, maybe there is another way that you do a direct to within a star in this airplane, and that's what they've modeled, and I don't know about it, or that's something that the developers are going to be working on. Nothing really to worry about here. I don't usually do seatbelts until 25,000 feet. We might go ahead and do a cabin call. Let the attendants know that, hey, we're getting ready to start flipping switches that affect you in the cabin, so start putting stuff away for landing. Nothing else to worry about here. If the clock is a little bit dim for you, you can come over here and there is the clock, and you can turn that up just a little bit. So it's 1634 Zulu. Another thing that sometimes happens on a VATSIM event is they will say, they'll do a little something like when you're coming in, you get, as they say, exit left one able, ground point 7. And you're doing a whole bunch of different things. And as soon as you get to ground, they say, welcome to Denver, say parking. So they want to know almost immediately, while you're doing 100 other things, where do you want to park? So one of the things that I'll do is I'll look at my real world flight and see, this flight is going to Denver Gate Bravo 54. And what I will do with that little bit of information is I will jot that down here while I have time. So there is my arrival gate, Alpha 3 and Bravo 54. And then I'll even, if I have time, come on over here to the gates and see where is Bravo 54. Bravo 54 is on the south side of the B concourse all the way at the end. Okay, so now I've just figured out where we have to go. Now's the time to do those sorts of things. Okay, and you can see we're coming up on 27,000 feet. Our airspeed is now 285 knots. At some point in time, ATC is very probably going to be telling us speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. When we get to flight level 2, okay, there's Hippie. So, and we were 160 feet off. Not so shabby on that descent. The next one we're going to do is going to be our descent down to Flatiron, and that one is going to be, once again, Flatiron is going to be no lower than flight level 190. I might change my speed now, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that down to 280, just to make it a nice number. Here we go. Here is our next turn. And we said we were going to do that descent about halfway out of Hippie to Folsom. So let's go ahead and put that altitude in, flight level 190. So 190, and there we go. That's sort of halfway. Ooh, reset that heading bug. And keep an eye, the airplane gets a little crazy. And as we continue coming on down, we're getting closer and closer. I think starting your descent sooner rather than later is fine in this situation. So vertical speed, and then just gently 200 feet, 300, 400, 500. It just is a, nice kind of what you'd expect out of a passenger liner, as opposed to flight level change, which, immediately puts you, into the dive of death or something like that. So, and now down we go to flight level 190 at Flatiron. We have a speed restriction at Eldo of 250 knots, so we're at 280. Unless you've got ATC telling you to maintain a certain speed to make it a nice smooth flight, you might start sneaking your speed down a little bit in the descent. Sorry about that cough. I wasn't fast enough on the cough button. Looking over here at the radio, let's just see. Oh, look at this. Good airplane. It automatically switched it to our frequency. Sometimes it doesn't do that, but that's a good thing. So now my strategy would be is at this point in time, I might think, they're bouncing airplanes back and forth between the runways right now. I guess we might want to prepare for 1-6 left too. So 1-6 left, that frequency is 111.1. You could come down here and put that in as your backup. Make that your backup frequency now, and if they flip you to the other one way, it's one button and you're all set and ready to go. Okay, coming up on Bobco. Flatiron's pretty good. 24,000 feet. Let's do seatbelts. There goes the seatbelt sign. And if you come back in this airplane and look up at the passenger signs, aha, seatbelts are now armed, are now on. So yeah, the cabin is really nicely done. Eldo, so we're about 30 miles from a slowdown to 30. So maybe let's go ahead and get that auto throttle, and let's go ahead and sneak it down 10 knots. Again, unless ATC has got you on a specific airspeed for the approach, hey, this is another passenger comfort kind of thing. There's Bobco. We're going to hit Flatiron at 19,000 feet just fine. Now, as we're starting to hit these waypoints, one after another, what I will do is I'll just go and start dialing it down. So after Flatiron, I'll be ready with 16. We'll be below 15 at Be Safe, no problem. Be Done is 14, and at the end, it's 13,000. Once you start into these regular waypoints here like this, you could almost dial in that last altitude, and you'll hit every one of those. Once you're kind of in the descent, it works really pretty good. They're, I guess, probably planned that way, right? Coming up on Flatiron, pretty good there too. We're at 21,000 feet, 12 miles to go. I'm going to go and reduce that speed another 10 knots. And Eldo is 250. So now we're at 260. So we're going to be able to hit that Eldo speed just fine. And 10 miles from Flatiron, we've got probably about 1,500 feet to go. Looking good. We also need to be ready with altimeter check setting. We do the altimeter. Okay, there's 1,000 feet to go. We've got 8 miles. Not so bad. In fact, while we're doing the descent, I might reduce my rate of descent to about 1,500 feet per minute. And let's go and get Eldo. Continue the descent to 16,000 feet. And let's also go ahead and do the last 10 knots here of our airspeed. And that's going to get us 250. We're in great shape. We're 5 miles from Flatiron. We're going to bust the... All right, we're a little low. So 4.7. I moved a little bit fast there, but I doubt that the altitude police are going to come get me. So we'll continue down to Flatiron. We're Eldo. We're going to continue. Altimeter is 2981. Hit the baro set button and 2981. And sometimes I have a hard time with this dial, so I go from the other side, and that works out pretty good. And there's 2981 altimeters are set. This is also when I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do auto brakes low. This is a long runway. We got a long taxi out. Excuse me. And there's 17. Looks like we're going to be at 16,000 feet at Eldo for a while, because we got 12 miles to go. After Eldo, it's going to be 14 at B-Done. Be Safe is at or below. We're going to hit that at or below without any problem at all. It's just 1,000 feet. We got another speed restriction coming up at B-Done, and that's 210 knots. There we go, 1,000 feet to go. And again, having your map out like this, just like this, that's how you can manage your speed down. And VATSIM controllers, I probably wouldn't even be able to tell that we don't have the VNAV button. We're doing it manually all the way down. I think that adds to the challenge of this airplane and makes it a little more fun. So 250, we have not done our arrival data. So go to the landing tab. Runway heading. Our runway heading for the arrival is going to be 173 degrees. 173 is our runway heading. According to the METAR, the temperature in Denver is a chilly 8 degrees. We're going to make it a full flaps landing. Winds in Denver are 220 at 7. Right? Yep, 220 at 7 knots. And that says it's going to be running a little bit of a tailwind now. Okay, they're probably, I don't know if they're going to switch landing or not. No ice reported, and landing speeds. VAP is 123 plus 1 is 124. There's 16,000 feet at Eldo. Back over here, there's that. We actually had a few miles to spare. Our next altitude is going to be 14,000 feet at B-Done. So let's go ahead and dial in that 14. There's 14,000 feet. I'm going to hit my heading bug again. I'm really kind of expecting this to go and do one of its wild and crazy turns here any minute. It's about time for LNAV to freak out on me. And there we go. Be safe. Let's continue our descent. Vertical speed. Down we go. Gentle descent. Let's make this one at about 1,500 feet per minute. As we get in closer, you can reduce your descent speeds to about 700 to 800 feet per minute on final. Oh, reset the heading bug. It is off slightly. And if it does start to make some crazy turn, all you have to do now is hit the heading button, and it'll return you back to which way you're supposed to go. And then you have to steer yourself. Okay, get ready. We've also got a speed reduction from 250 to excuse me, 210. Let's start reducing our speed by about 10 knots each time. That still keeps your descent rate fairly constant. Okay, we were supposed to be below 15,000 feet at Be Safe. We met that one. And I'm going to do, how about another 10 knots here? This is kind of a tight one. So it could be the best thing to do is not just inch it down. Let's just dial it straight down to 210 on this one. So there's 210 knots. We need to be at be done between 15 and 14. We're going to be between 15 and 14. In fact, we could reduce our rate of descent a little bit, and that's going to get our speed a little bit closer. Flap extension speed, you could do flaps 1 at 230. We're at 210, so we could already start throwing some flaps out if we want to. Flaps 1. There's Be Done. After Be Done, we're going to go to 13,000 feet at Tichenor, and we are at 210 knots. Flaps 2 is at 215, so we could do flaps 2 if we wanted. And if you get a chance, be sure to look out the window. Coming out over the Front Range of Colorado is going to be nice, especially in the wintertime. Wintertime, this is an amazing place to fly around and enjoy the views of the Rockies. Almost at Be Done. Nothing else to do here. We could go ahead and do sterile cockpit. Let's go ahead and put the cabin crew in their seats. Let's also come on up here, and we're going to do devices. So devices off and stowed. Okay, there's Be Done. We can now do Tichenor, and that is going to be 13,000 feet at Tichenor. So a nice gentle descent at about 1,000 feet per minute should do it. Well, there's 1,100 at Tichenor. So we're done with the star pretty much at this point. Let's go over here to the ILS. And at Tichenor, 13,000 feet, 210 knots. At Shred, we should be down to 10,000 feet at Shred. So we just manage our way down here. Okay, look at that. The airplane did it. We're turning. See, it started to make a turn to the right. It was getting off of Tichenor here. So now we're on our own. Like I said, it seems to do that as you're close to transitioning out of the SID into an ILS or something. I don't know, and again, I might be doing something wrong here. But you can kind of see as we look at this, we caught it in time. We're hardly off of this. So I think we're in good shape. We may, if we feel like it, go ahead and let's go, just a few degrees off to get closer to Tichenor. There's our 13,000 feet. We're at 210 knots. Now that we're off of this, if you want to, you can go and hit the VL button. That takes it out of nav mode, and we'll dial in your ILS. And we're on localizer 2 right now. Both of the frequencies are set. So we can just leave that there. It's nice and green. Okay, let's go ahead and start our turn over here. So this is our turn to Skim J, I guess. If you stay ahead like this, you really can manage this thing and look like a pro doing it. Okay, there's our turn in. I waited a little bit long. And our next altitude is 10,000 feet. That's mandatory. So 10,000 feet, vertical speed, and down. Oh, maybe 1,200 feet per minute should keep us right where we need to be. You'd think at this point in time it would be kind of cool if we could go and say maybe direct to like CU or Shred or something like that. It won't let me do that. It'll say no direct tos. So it's kind of a brat like that. I'm also going to take note of the wind. Right now we've got a wind from the right blowing us to the left. So maybe how about 3 or 4 degrees further to the right to compensate. It's only an 8-knot wind, but not a big deal. No sign of Denver Airport there. This is also the perfect time. Once again, just come on over to your airport chart. Have a look. We're coming in on 16 right. We'll probably get off at Delta 8. Maybe Delta 5 for Whiskey Bravo in there. Otherwise, we'll cross over. If there's a lot of airplanes out there, you're going to want to get off the runway fast. So Delta 8, I'm going to wait for Delta 5 because Whiskey Bravo takes us right on into the Bravo concourse, also known as United Land. Another thing at this point in time to do is come on in here and just zoom this map in now that we're all briefed on this. And that's going to be good for your ground map. Okay, there is Shred. We're coming up on 10,000 feet on the final approach. Platform altitude is 7,000. I'm going to go ahead and let the airplane continue down to 7,000. We also should be picking up glide slope and localizer. We are. Let's get a little help from the approach system. In fact, it did it for us. It did it for us there. Now at this point in time, air traffic control may be telling us to reduce our speed to 180 knots until 5 miles DME. So let's go to 180 until 5 DME. And now we'll probably do flaps 2, probably even flaps 3. Oh, it's already flaps 3, I guess. I didn't know I did flaps 2. So flaps 3 is at 200 knots. Flaps 4 is 180. And it looks like we are on glide slope. Now, all of a sudden, this thing changed to a different color, to gold. I don't know what that's all about. But if you go and hit it over to number 1, it all becomes green again. Not sure. I'm probably doing something wrong. I'm going to reduce my rate of descent here to about 500 feet per minute. And that's going to slow us down. That way, we'll catch up to the glide slope at this point. I think landing gear is probably a good idea. Gear going down. And I have neglected to do my landing lights at 10,000 feet. I do that in Denver. Let's turn on that nose light as well. Final cabin call. Let the cabin crew know we are getting ready to do that landing thing. And let's just go ahead and do one more hit of the heading select button there. And we are 12 miles from the runway. I see nothing that looks like an airport. Minimum should work for us just fine. Over on my other monitor, I've taken off the charts, and now it's the moving map with Navigraph. That way I'll have a ground chart with a moving map all ready to go. If you're like me and you tend to move around in your gamer chair a little bit, now's the time to go ahead and sit back, straighten up so that you can get to all your controls. If you've got, I have the Thrustmaster Airbus throttles. So one of the things I'm going to do is physically move my throttles back. I don't know if I disconnected the auto throttle or not there. Well, I don't think I did, but that could have been a problem. Oh, we got localizer and glide slope. So the airplane's taking good care of us now. And that looks pretty good. We are 8 miles. So at Jetson, we can go and do our speed of 123 plus 1 is 124. I'm starting to see something that looks like the runway. We're about ready to hit that 7,000 feet, but the localizer and glide slope has us, so we'll just continue. The airplane really slows down fast.
2,500.
So there's really no need for a lot of braking and reversers, especially if you want to roll out to near the end of the runway. Coming up on Jetson. And that's our 5 miles. It dropped. VAP is now 123. So 124. Let's get the auto throttle down to 124. This is kind of hard if you're flying by hand right now. So 124 is going to be our speed for landing. There we go. And how about some more flaps? Flaps rolling out. And pretty much, I mean, that's what it would look like out the window if we were coming in. On this view, on this runway, we might actually see another airplane on a parallel approach. Okay, gently go over, sit back, put your feet on your rudder pedals. Everything's looking good. Once you've gone and done a last check of the wind, it is ahead to the right, blowing us to the left.
Autopilot.
AP is off.
Autopilot.
Captain's got the airplane.
1,000.
And I'll just generally not touch, you know, if we're on a gentle descent, I'll just put my hand on the control here. Okay, we're starting to get a little high, so one of the other things that I'm finding is us sim pilots tend to really over control our airplanes. So I'm trying to move my controls a lot in much smaller increments.
500.
Looks like a beautiful day to fly in Denver.
400.
That's what it looked like. Let myself get a little high when I looked
300.
out the window. It's okay, we got a long runway.
Approaching minimums. 200.
Auto throttle's going off.
Minimums. 100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Little bit of reverse. Not much. You have to do your own speed brakes on the airplane. And that's pretty good. Auto brakes
brake.
off. There's 40 knots. You see how fast this thing will slow down? And we're not going to do, I think, our little rollout. So we'll just come out here. So speed brakes down. Flaps can start rolling it up again. Denver, I've noticed on this runway, will do two things. They'll either take you over on Whiskey Charlie or have you taxi south like this. Why don't we go over here and do Whiskey Charlie over here. Landing rate was a minus 339 on flow. Landing rate always seems to be a little bit high. You might need a little bit of taxi to keep it, a little bit of power to keep it rolling. And it looks like the concrete's wet. It must have been raining here. Let's do landing lights. Up. Get over here. That's the big problem when you're looking around, when you're taxiing and flipping switches. That's why we have co-pilots. We'll turn strobes off. And in we go. There is the North Fire Station. We'll get back over on this one. We do have a runway coming up. So expect ATC to tell you to hold right, hold short of 16 left. And there's that fire station. This is the Payware Airport. And then taxi in is just really nice here. Nobody's on approach. Yeah, don't see anybody. ATC says cross the runway and Foxtrot to the gate. Okay, we're moving along at a fairly good clip right now. So we got a 90-degree turn. So we're at 22 knots. We're going to need to slow it down to right around 10 knots for a 90-degree turn. That seems to be the number for jetliners. And then we'll go ahead, because it's Denver, as we finishing up the turn, we'll increase the power just a little bit because we got a long way to go and not much time to get there. As we're coming on in, we'll flip the APU control to on. Haven't started it yet. I'm just going to pop it on. And I guess one of the things is there's a little yellow light that flashes like 5 times. After that, then you can go and flip it on. So it's not just click, click, and it's on. You kind of have to wait. Maybe that's the flap in the back that's opening. As you're coming in, come on over here, have a look and see how you did on the landing. I floated a little bit down the runway. So that's where we were, the little red dot. And there is the touchdown point. So at least I didn't bounce. And yeah, I was, as usual, like all flight sim pilots, I was hunting for butter. The most important thing, though, is to please go, is to go, put your wheels down on the touchdown point. And we're taxiing along right now at about 19-20 knots. That's actually pretty good. We're going to look for Bravo Sierra to get to our gate. Everything's cleaned up there. We've got the lights put away. We could go ahead and we could do devices. Once you get on the ground, let people start using their cell phones. And a lot more of especially the Airbus airplanes, they're starting to actually model the devices now. So they're starting to model that instead of no smoking like the real airlines. Okay, there is Charlie November. So there's the Charlie concourse. Probably going to need to start getting some updates from developers on the Denver airport. They've extended the Charlie and Bravo concourses. So this is the way it used to be. And we're going down to gate Bravo 54. So while we're taxiing in, this is the time that I can be a real YouTuber and say, hey, thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, likes sure do matter. Subscriptions may help me grow the channel. Thank you for doing that. If you really liked what you saw here, there is a Ko-fi link right now for that coffee thing if you'd like to do that. But if you could, think about coming on over and joining us on the Spy Flight. That's over on Twitch. It's every day, 1900 Zulu. Everything's a group flight. It is a really great group of people that fly along, including some real-world airline pilots come in. They do take questions, and they give you pretty good, honest answers, too. I've also recently started a Patreon page after layoffs and all those other things and real jobs like we all experience. This is how it is that I'm keeping the lights on in my life. So I did start a Patreon page, and that's where I do a pre-flight video for the day's flight. That's usually the first thing I do in the morning after coffee, of course. I would not even think of attempting to do anything involving the internet, a camera, a microphone without coffee. Also mentioned, I'm still pretty new here on YouTube, so I do read all the questions, comments. If there's a video that, an airplane that you'd like to see, that you're having a hard time with, and maybe one of these cold and dark videos would help out, please put that in the comments. I've already done several cold and dark videos based on the comments there, so would really like to hear from you that way too. And we'll add just a little more power. Generally, it's 10 knots here in the gate area. We're going to go to the Bravo Sierra side here for taxi in. And we're looking for Bravo 54. The Denver concourse as it is, the Denver airport as it is really nicely done. There's the circus tent down there. The Westin Hotel, also called the Whale Tail Hotel, is down there too. Plus, if you really get out and use your drone cam and head on over out to the front of the airport, you will see the famous statue of Blucifer the horse, where there's a whole story about that horse and how the sculpture killed the sculptor. It fell over on the guy who was making it. So the horse has quite a history. Okay, there's the middle of the concourse right now. We're going to be 4 from the end before we go to the commuter concourse. When in Denver, I am not sponsored by this, but when in Denver, over on the west end of the Bravo concourse, there's a little place called E-Ties that's really pretty good. Their breakfast sandwich is very nice. What's also really pretty good about E-Ties is the Baileys and the coffee, and if you're really nice, they sometimes give you seconds for free. Okay, I'm just looking over. 54 is 3 from the end. Up, stopped. Come on. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Didn't mean to be upside down. Okay, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3 from the end. There's Bravo 54. That should get us there. Kind of right at the end of this little thing. So this thing right here, there's the United Club. That's the first class club and stuff like that. There's 2 of them, actually. I've paid to get in there once. I just assumed go to something like E-Ties or something. Okay, come on, airplane. Passengers got places to be. I don't think I've ever gotten on the airplane or gotten off the airplane here in Denver. I'm always just, this has always just been a hub for me. And that should be our gate right there. So let's start the turn over in there. Thrust levers to idle. And looking pretty good. I hope you enjoyed the flight. I really do hope that maybe this helped you figure out. Again, I really like this airplane for the simple reason that this is an airplane that is being used today. And it's one that, that kind of helps make Flight Simulator a lot more real, which I think is one of the cool things about the sim world. And here we are coming on in here. No gate guidance going in. So I'll just go and put my engines right about here, and that usually is enough for me to get my, get a jetway. Parking brakes are going to go on. Let's see, the APU, verify that it's up and running. It is 100%, so we can come and do engine number 2, engine number 1. I got those backwards. We're going to go and start squawking standby. Coming in up here, I should have turned off the nose light as we were coming in. We'll also turn off seatbelts as we get the engines off. Red beacon can go off too. And then I'll come on over here, go to ground. We would like to have some wheel chocks, some cones, like a ground power unit. Let's see if it's going to get us a jetway. Hey, look at that. Here comes our jetway. And at gate B54, it'll come on in. I've also tried this airplane in what we like to call continuing service or a second flight. So the real world airplane's going to get to gate 54. Everybody's going to get off. After everybody gets off, one of the things that'll happen is they'll clean up the airplane, spin it around, and do another flight without even turning stuff off. So one of the things I've found is this airplane, if you come on down here and go back over here to the route command, you see a lot of this is still in here. So you do have to replace these things, but eventually you can get this airplane ready to go for a second flight without turning everything off. We should put the plastic caps over there, and really, that's about it. So there you go. I hope this helped you. This is a fun airplane, and yep, you can put it on VATSIM. You just have to stay about a mile ahead of the whole thing. As always, I do like to say it's never about the right way versus the wrong way. This is what's working for me in the simulated world, and I hope it works for you too. Can't wait to meet you over on Twitch at 757SPY. In the meantime, this is the point where I say thanks for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you in the friendly sim skies. Cheers.